The point is musicality, the point is clarity. To get real bass, to get a better bass, to get a better mid-range, to get a better high.
Motoring 91 is brought to you by Quaker State. The big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will.
I'm only going for a night. I gotta stop packing so much. How you doing? Welcome to Motoring 91. As you can see, I'm at the airport. I'm not gonna tell you where I'm going, at least not until the end of the show. Stick around, it'll be worth it though. Now, let's get things started by joining Steve Grant. And Steve has a story about a man who has always had a dream to be just like Mario Andretti. Well, guess what? The dream came true.
Shannonville Racetrack in a driving rainstorm. Not exactly the stuff dreams are made of, but you would never know it from this face. John Cormack is a 42-year-old account executive and a father of a 3-year-old. But today, he's a race car driver.
Here's the number 90 Camaro.
Yeah.
That's one of the fellows I took the CAS Scoupe with. Yeah, there's a number of them up here. It's amazing.
Out of 1,200 people, John was lucky enough to win a contest that put him in the driver's seat. Charlie Goodman taught him the ropes at his high-performance race school, and then John passed his regional race exam. Now he prepares for his first time in actual competition.
I'm happy.
So what are you looking forward to most now that you're just getting ready to get in the car? You got a lot of friends here. Obviously, you got a little bit of driving experience along with the driving training you got now. What do you want to get out of all this?
I think it's just really the experience. Just, you know, how many people get a chance to drive a car, race car? And it's fabulous, you know, fabulous weather to do it in, rain. They sort of really set it up for me here. No, it's just that experience, you know, coming across and being a spectator in motorsport, to be able to strap the suits on, get into the car, and actually do it and bring it back in one piece. And that's my goal today. You know, it's a different attitude. You know, I'm here for fun, for a thrill, you know, for an experience.
So we're going to see John Cormack at the next Indy 500, maybe 2 years from now.
I don't know. You want to get TSN to back me? Yeah, like, don't shake the camera. You look inside?
No, not
Oh,
yet.
check it out. Like, if you're going to get soaked, but
Just wait and see. This is the rain that we drove through getting here. It's going to come down and block us.
thanks a lot.
Hey, put your windshield wipers on him. Well, John and I go back a long time, and you know, he used to do some slalom racing and some rally racing, and it's natural for him. You know, it's a lot of the guys that are out here with him have been around cars for a long time, but we've never had the money or the time to do it. So it's nice to get out and cheer on one of the guys through it, you know. So it's kind of exciting for everybody because one of the guys gets out in a race car, and something we'd all like to do, but no such luck, you know.
Well, I think he'll do all right, but I don't think for John that winning is the important thing. It's just the fact that he's here doing it.
Your man's getting ready to go on the racetrack. How do you feel?
I was nervous yesterday when he first went out, but we had 2 runs yesterday, and so I feel not quite as nervous today, more excited. He can't wait. Yeah, he's really excited. It's a thrill of a lifetime for him, for sure.
I enjoy driving. I got a big ski boat. We drive. We're snowmobiling. You know, a lot of things. Along with trying to keep the grass cut and the house painted. I'd love to be able to get into racing, but I wish I'd done this 20 years ago. Unbelievable. Yeah? That was fabulous.
up. Every time. What a great race. Do it every time. Oh, yeah. Oh, I passed one car. Oh, you did. I got so excited they passed two of them past me. Had a good fight with a couple of guys there.
Obviously, you look like a race car driver. Did you feel like a race car driver out there?
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about that. It's really something. You know, it's the competition. I think I may have yelled something about it was like the 401 out there, but unbelievable. It was really slippery. All the skills that the guys at Nissan certainly taught me came into play all the time there, especially in the rain, as it was still really wet out there. And hey, look at this, I brought it home, no dents, no scratches, and actually passed a couple of guys out there.
So when do you buy your own race car?
Never.
And you're on luck. Back to being a spectator.
Coming up on Test Drive this week, we've got an automotive scoop. Stick around and you'll find out exactly what it is.
Test Drive with Graham Fletcher.
This week on Test Drive, it's the 1991 Hyundai Scoupe. Now this vehicle is going to supplement the lineup they have at the moment very nicely, because what it gives them is a very affordable, very attractive sports coupe.
The fact that the S in Scoupe does not match the coupe portion might indicate that the car was going to be called the S Coupe. At least this handle would have given you some idea as to what the car was all about. The name Scoupe is not exactly inspired. The Scoupe style is certainly attractive, earning the car more than its fair share of admiring looks. As a 2+2, the rear seat environment is cramped and only suitable for kids or very limited travel for adults. The 60-40 split rear seat adds a great deal of versatility. For a relatively small car, the Scoupe can hold a lot of luggage. It also boasts a nice low liftover, making loading and retrieval of your packages very easy. From the driver's perspective, the tilt steering, adjustable lumbar support and thigh supports, along with a well-placed dead pedal, make for a very comfortable driving position. The dash is clean, clear and legible, and the rotary-style heater controls are easy to use. The power window switches are also conveniently located by the grab handle. All in all, the inside is very well laid out, making the best of the limited interior size. The 1.5-litre engine features multi-point fuel injection. This on frosty mornings improves cold starts and cold performance. Despite producing a lowly 82 horsepower, the motor pulls well and is a fairly willing performer. At 12 seconds to the 100k mark though, you can hardly call it a quick car. That said, it still gets the job done in fine fashion. On the highway, the engine runs at around 3200 RPM, indicating that fifth gear could do with being a little lower. This would reduce the strain on both driver and engine, because lower RPMs equate to economical performance and a lot less noise. Whilst on the subject of the engine, the underhood layout is good, with all service items being readily accessible. Even a backyard mechanic wouldn't get lost under here. Matched with the engine is a 5-speed manual transmission. The shifter on our test vehicle imparted a very notchy feel, and the clutch take-up came very late in the travel. Minor adjustments to both would have made the driving experience a lot more pleasurable. The suspension is an incongruous mix. During the pylon test there was a fair amount of body lean, and yet on the road the whole setup feels overly stiff. The shocks also have a problem controlling the rebound when you hit a series of bumps. In short, the whole setup could do with retuning. The Michelin Sport EPX Plus radials give the Scoupe a sure-footed feel, offering plenty of grip and good directional stability. If the suspension were the equal of these tyres, the car would excel in the handling department. As it is only a little better than average. The brakes, on the other hand, are superb. They are the best non-ABS system I've tested in a while. The pedal is exceptionally easy to modulate. This means you can achieve maximum brake effort whilst managing to avoid lockup.
A couple of minor items on the interior here make up this week's pet peeve. First of all, the coffee cup holder is so flimsy I wouldn't trust a large cup of coffee in there. And secondly, they've placed the radio and heater controls at the limit of your reach. Bringing them this way a couple of inches would have made things so much nicer. Now to the scoreboard for a review of the 1991 Hyundai Scoupe.
The Scoupe boasts the best non-ABS brake system I've tested in a while. The pedal feel and function are superb. This setup gives the car stopping distances of just 106 feet from 80 kilometers an hour, a laurel for the job well done. The suspension offers a peculiar balance of handling characteristics. In the pylon test there was a fair amount of body roll, yet on the highway the ride was on the harsh side of stiff. Some retuning would work wonders and allow the car to make full use of its excellent tyres. The Scoupe doesn't exactly romp to 100 kilometers an hour at 12 seconds, but for everyday use the engine gives the car ample pep and its flexibility is well suited to round town driving. The Scoupe rated at 73 decibels, which is certainly acceptable. The majority of the noise evident is engine related because of the gearing selected. During a 1,000-kilometer test we averaged a very commendable 32 miles per gallon or 8.8 litres per 100 kilometers. Hyundai has long been a two-horse stable. The Scoupe gives the car a much-needed third dimension. The car offers style, reasonable performance and pizzazz for a price that even the modest budget can handle. All in all, things look good at Hyundai.
Oh, this looks like my departure gate. Now remember, I'm not going on a vacation, I'm going to work, and the work is all for Motoring 91, and I'll tell you more about that later on. But first we're going to head to the shop and join our favorite mechanic, Bill Gardner. This week he's going to talk about a problem you may have with your car, and hopefully not with a plane, and that's a leak.
I'm sure at one time or another you've come out to your car in a parking lot or in your garage and found a puddle of some kind of fluid underneath it and wondered what it was. It probably scared you. Now, we've had this car jacked up over the weekend, and we see that a red fluid's come out just in about dead center of the car. This is a rear-wheel drive car, and that just happens to be right where the automatic transmission is, so we've pretty well identified that kind of a leak. It didn't leak when the car was level, so the leak is probably some kind of a seal right in the back of the transmission. After we jacked it up and tipped the oil back, it came out the rear seal of the transmission. Now, one of the most common areas to have a leak is the underhood area of the car, and there's a lot of machinery grouped in that area, so that we have to be careful when we're trying to pinpoint those leaks. One of the most obvious things would be a coolant leak from the radiator, and that leak would be very forward in the engine compartment, and there again you'd be looking for that green fluid that we normally associate with a coolant leak. Engine oil leaks, of course, just about dead center of the engine compartment, and a black type of fluid. And we could have leaks in the brake system around the brake master cylinder or booster area, and those would be just slightly to the left of center. Also, the power steering system can leak, and that's usually just to the left of center if it's a rear-wheel drive car. If it's a front-wheel drive car, it could be in a number of locations, usually to the right side. In some cases, though, the leak will hit another part of the car and channel along before it runs down. In that case, we want to look at those components of the car, and if the leak has been ongoing for any length of time, we'll have an area that's washed clean. In other words, a dirty spot on the engine that's got a definite washing action channeling back to that leak. Those will be the symptoms that will lead us to the offending component or seal. Now, if the leak's in the rear portion of your car, you'd want to be looking at things like rear axle lubricant if it's a rear-wheel drive car. There is only a couple of quarts of lubricant in that rear axle, so it's important that if you discover a leak there, you have it checked right away. You could easily empty that component and damage it. If the leak's to the left or right of center, it could even be a shock absorber. There's quite a bit of hydraulic fluid in those shocks, and when they fail, it can all leak out. If the leak's right near the tail end of the car, quite possibly could be the gas tank or some of the lines damaged or rusted out. In that case, you want to be very careful where you park that car. Don't put it inside a building or garage until you've identified or repaired that leak. Could be quite dangerous. So the things to remember are identify the leak and line it up with the component, check the color and texture of the fluid because it may be similar to just the way it went in, and check those components to make sure that they're not dangerously low of any fluid and you'll damage the car by driving it. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardner for Motoring 91.
There is a whole lot of money to be had. In the beginning of the year in Georgia, the first place best of show was $25,000 US. But to be able to achieve that spot, the top spot, you're putting in $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 into your car stereo.
If you have any comments or suggestions, drop us a line at Motoring 91, Post Office Box 284, Station J, Toronto, Ontario, M4J 4Y1.
Thank you. Last off, as usual, I'm at my final destination, and I'll tell you later on where I am and why I'm here, so stay with us. But first, we're going to join Nancy Zainas, and she has a story about some people who may not like to fly, only because they don't have a radio in the back. And these people like the radio on whenever they travel, and they like it loud.
It was not many years ago that car stereo enthusiasts would show off their systems anywhere and any time they got a chance. In those days, these small-scale stereo wars were appropriately termed crank-em-ups. Today, interest is so widespread that the International Auto Sound Challenge Association, or IASCA, has scheduled a series of structured events that lead to a world final.
Well, the point is musicality, the point is clarity, to get real bass from the bass that's there, to get a better bass, to get a better mid-range, to get a better high, so that you can put those together and one won't run into the other, and you can center stage the automobile. When you receive an automobile from a manufacturer, that isn't there, and it's put together on an assembly line. This is done individually. This is done versus, shall we say, a cookie cutter. This is done by hand. With precision, it's tedious work, and there's a lot of pride that goes into it, and with what comes out of it, the performance from it, and how it looks, is just something that they excel to.
Hi there. Do an SPL first, track 1. Okay, when you get to the very beginning of track 1 and you start it, give me a hand signal. Touch nothing but the volume control throughout the test. Okay?
This is the first IASCA-sanctioned event ever to be held in Canada. A panel of trained judges rank systems by an official set of rules.
They compete in 13 different categories. The primary function of judging is in really 3 areas. The ability to reproduce a sound curve, and that is musicality. We're looking for installation quality, and we're looking for a certain amount of creativity in the installation as well.
Most competitors take this all very seriously and are definitely here to win.
The whole idea is to get qualified to enter the finals, which are being held in Arizona, Tempe, Arizona, where the pot is fairly hefty. I mean, you're looking at maybe an outlay of $40,000 to $50,000 worth of prize money for all the different classes. I do this with conviction, and I spend a lot of time at it, and my cars consistently do well.
I sell stereos for a living. I thought I could get closer related to my customers if I got involved myself, and I got involved and got carried away.
What do you get out of it?
A lot of personal satisfaction. The fact we work a lot of hours, we work after business hours working on the car, come here and beat people with more money invested in their car.
Some of these systems have the capacity to be so loud that they can actually blow out your eardrums. But IASCA has taken precautions.
In any of these auto sound challenges, the highest, the maximum, is 130 dB. Normally you'll receive 90 as a normal, but 130 is the max that we will allow a car to go. So if a car does go over that, and some do, then they don't get any extra points for it. A 747 is 150 dB. I know there's a difference of, you might say 20 dB, but really it's not, because for every 3 dB, you've got double the power. So 130 is sufficient. That's more than enough.
So what kind of music are these sound-off experts into?
So I'm getting into a lot of the vocals, like the Barbra Streisands and so on and so forth. But top 40 would probably be my niche.
I listen to jazz, classical, rock and roll, basically every kind of music.
Well, I still like Neil Diamond and Chris Rea and some of the old boys, you know. But at the end of the day, it's still nice to get back into my Buick and I can listen to a conventional classical type of music.
About 24 of Canada's best competitors are expected to make the trip to Arizona. That is twice as many as last year, but only half the number expected next year. I'm Nancy Zanos for Motoring 91.
Just when you thought you were on the leading edge of the communications field comes the radio fax. This nifty Canadian invention becomes an extension of your cellular phone, enabling you to send and receive faxes anywhere in the world. The radio fax plugs into a jack shared with your phone, and power comes from the cigarette lighter. But the facsimile mobile interface is key to the system. This little black box converts power and puts you in touch with the world.
This $65,000 luxury car is officially a truck. But is it safe? I'll tell you all about it next on Kenzie's Corner.
Kenzie's Corner with Jim Kenzie.
My sister lives in Calgary, Alberta. On a recent trip here to Toronto, she noted that a lot of people here still buy cars. What's so strange about that, I asked her, and she said, well, in Calgary, people only buy trucks. In fact, 1 out of 4 new vehicles sold in this country is now a truck. A lot of them, like this sport utility vehicle 4-wheel drive Range Rover, and even Motoring 91's production vehicle, the General Motors Safari van, are more often used as passenger cars than trucks. And even real trucks like pickups are more often driven to the office than to the construction site. So what, you might ask? Well, simply, trucks are not required to meet the same safety standards as passenger cars. Things like side door guard beams, 8 km/h bumpers, and headrests are not mandatory on trucks. Now, some so-called safety advocates criticize the car companies for jeopardizing their customers' safety just to save a few bucks. And yet, I've got a report from the Insurance Bureau of Canada here, which says that among the safest vehicles on the road is the General Motors M van. Well, how can this be? How can a vehicle which doesn't meet safety standards still be a safe vehicle to drive? Well, it's pretty simple. The safety standards, the crash tests that they use to evaluate these standards, and the real world are parallel universes which very seldom intersect. Just because a vehicle survives a crash into a concrete wall at 30 miles an hour doesn't necessarily mean it's going to save your life in a freeway accident. Things like side door guard beams and headrests may be implicated in some accidents, but it's statistically a very small percentage. Now, some of these features are available in newer vans and 4-wheel drives, and if they're important to you, make sure you check with your dealer before you buy. But the fact remains that the 3 biggest factors in traffic safety are the same as they've always been. I've whined at you before, I'll whine at you again. Number 1, learn how to drive, and that means advanced driver training. Number 2, never drink and drive. And number 3, and most important, always wear your seatbelt. This is Jim Kenzie in Kenzie's Corner.
Well, we have now arrived in Alberta. We're heading out of Calgary on Highway 1. Our destination, the Rocky Mountains and the Shadow Lake Louise. Now make sure you join us next week, because when we're there, we are going to show you an automobile. It's been around for 21 years, but it's never been available in Canada, at least not until now. That's next week on Motoring 91. Make sure you join us. We'll see you then.
Motoring 91 has been brought to you by Quaker State. The big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will.
See the wiper switch, right hand? The flick switch. That's right.